Hi, I'm Jennifer LeBeau, a realtor here on Philadelphia's Main Line, with the second in a step-by-step video series called Home Buying 101. This video is entitled, What Other Factors Affect Affordability? And it's the second. It follows the first video, which is, What do I qualify for? So theoretically, you've already talked to a lender or a few lenders, and you have a pre-qualification letter that says, for example, you can buy a house up to $500,000. I like to have my buyers make a budget to make sure they can really afford that, because the kind of things that the lenders ask you about your financial situation don't necessarily cover everything. And I just like to make sure that people don't end up regretting a home purchase because it makes them spread too thin financially. So this video is about thinking about some of the other things that you spend your money on that you're going to want to be aware of before you commit to buying a house that has a particular monthly payment. So the first group of items are your housing related things. So what if the property you're looking at buying has a really high HOA or condo fee? You got to take that into account. And some lenders will address that and others sort of don't pay much attention to it. Then there are things like if you have a property you're interested in that for some reason has very high taxes. In Pennsylvania, around the main line, there are certain pockets, certain areas that have exorbitantly high taxes. They could be easily double what you'd find elsewhere. So the lenders are often not going to know that, and they might pre-qualify for you for a house of a certain price point, not realizing that the taxes are $18,000 as opposed to the $9,000 that they have assumed. So pay attention to the taxes on any property that you're looking at. Then there are things like utilities. Well, of course, you're already paying utilities somewhere, in theory, but there are two other things to consider with utilities. If you're moving from a small place, whether it's an apartment or another house you own, to a much larger place, your utility costs are going to increase. Moreover, if you're moving to a more expensive utility, for example, if you've been paying gas and you're moving to oil or a home with electric or most expensive propane that powers your heat and your cooking, you could have a really big jump in your utility costs. If the house that you're buying has a pool, there's a lot of costs associated with that, which leads into home maintenance costs. You have sort of repair replacement costs and you have maintenance. Repair replacement is, let's say the house you're looking at is 22 years, or the roof is 22 years old. You're going to have to put a roof on that house very soon, and that could cost you $18,000, $20,000. Or if the furnace is old and you have to replace that, that could cost you $6,000. But then there's also regular routine home maintenance. Sealing the driveway every 10 years. Tree work and landscaping work. If you have trees that overhang your roof, you have to keep those limbs trimmed. If you have a tree that dies and you've got to take a tree down, that can be $3,000. So the kind of maintenance you need to do, painting the house every few years, you have to figure that in too. So then there are the final sort of house-related costs that you might not think about. How about the move itself? You have to hire, in most cases, a moving company to move you. That's often not cheap, so budget for that. And finally, furnishings. A lot of people move from a two-bedroom apartment that has been sparsely furnished or furnished with college furniture or things from parents, and they move into a three-bedroom home that has a dining room separate from a living room, and it also has a family room and a finished basement. Well, that's great. But think about whether you have the furniture to furnish all those spaces, and if you don't, budget for it. You don't have to furnish everything the first month you're there, but it's just something I like people to be aware of. The second category of budgetary things that I like to make sure my buyers have considered are what I call the lifestyle expenses. And those include things that you like to do. Be honest with yourself. Do you like to go out to dinner a lot? Do you go to the theater? Do you have season tickets to the Eagles? Do you have to start saving money for orthodontia for your children? Or do you send them to summer camp? Some of those can be really significant expenses, And lenders aren't always keeping that in mind when they look at that debt to income ratio that I talked about in my first video. So I just like to make sure that my buyers don't get overextended financially. So those are some of the things you should think about, because what you qualify for is not necessarily the same as what you can afford when you're looking at a purchase price. I hope this video has been informative. Please let me know your comments and your questions. Contact me via my website at jenniferlebeau.com. That's JENNIFERLEB like boy, OW.com. I hope you watch the additional installments of the video series Home Buying 101. Thanks for listening.